96 not out. He bowls to him. It's a half volley, drives it down the ground, and there it is. He's done it. He lifts both hands in the air. Jeff Boycott has got his 100th 100, and the crowd cannot resist coming onto the pitch any longer.
Swan in again for the Vauxhall end, and that bites. He's got it short leg, and it's Swan who's taken the final wicket, and Hussey, the hero of Australia, who's out. Hussey doesn't like the decision, but he's clapping. It's all over. England have regained the Ashes after losing them so humiliatingly, 5-0 in Australia only 2 years ago. Australia are all out for 348 on a golden evening at the Oval.
The voice of Christopher Martin-Jenkins describing the moment that England won the 2009 Ashes on Test Match Special. Well, Jonathan Agnew is the current cricket correspondent for the BBC. He joins us now. Jonathan, it is a sad day, and the world of cricket has lost not just a respected journalist, but someone who deeply loved the game of cricket.
Yeah, on a golden evening at the Oval. No one else would have said that. It was a sort of detail that Christopher always put into his commentary, very precise. That sort of little fact, you know, it just he painted the picture, and that was the great strength of his broadcasting. Writing wise, as I've said, I don't think anybody has contributed more in a lifetime to writing or talking about cricket than Christopher did. You mentioned there the jobs that he had at the BBC, Times, Telegraph, 40 years at Test Match Special, all the books that he wrote, over 20 I think to his name. He was prolific, all through a really intense, deep love of the game. He was very protective of the game. He was traditional. He didn't necessarily embrace change, but he went away and thought about change, and usually went along with it in the end. But you know, at a time when not just cricket, but most sports tends to turn to the opinions of former Test cricketers, in cricket's case, at least those who have played the sport professionally, for their experience, their insight, and so on. You know, certainly in the case of cricket, commentators and broadsheet writers, particularly, are from that field now. Christopher, of course, wasn't from that background at all. His is from a deep love of the game. He always wanted to have a lifetime in cricket, and from that time he would say that he was very lucky to have done so, very fortunate to have had the life that he had. But he gained his respect for what he wrote through that intense love of the game, the way that he wrote about it, the way he threw himself into it, his love and protection, particularly for county cricket. He felt that there was too much Test cricket and one day international cricket particularly being played. Therefore, county cricket was suffering, and therefore below that, club cricket and so on. You know, he really was cricket's champion, and from that perspective, he will certainly be very missed. And I also believe, although it's very sad and very sad for the game, that unfortunately, because of this progression and the modern media, I don't think there'll be another Christopher Martin-Jenkins.
I don't recall any corpsing moments like you and with Brian Johnston, but
I know he had one.
Oh, really?
He did have one, including a cricketer's rod. I can't remember what it was, but
okay.
No. The great thing about Christopher was he did have a wonderful sense of humour, which wasn't always forthcoming on the radio. I mean, commentary for Christopher was first and foremost detail and fact. You could listen to Blowers or Brian Johnston or someone else if you wanted pigeons and that sort of business. But for Christopher, who'd been brought up in the old school, through Jim Swanton in particular, huge impact he had in his life. It was all about the detail, and I was reading someone today saying that if you were stuck on a motorway somewhere and you really wanted to know a vital part of the game that was going on, you'd want Christopher to be describing it on the radio, because you would get that detail of a golden evening and so on. So, you know, he wasn't one for cracking gags and pulling people's legs, but of course away from the microphone he was an entirely chaotic character. I mean, if ever anybody resembled John Cleese, out of Clockwise in particular, it was Christopher, who was always impossibly late for everything. He was always, the life was sort of running away.
Everyone has said
because
this
he was
today.
just sort of distracted. It was unimportant. It didn't matter to him. You know, he just got distracted. He was busy running. You know, you could hear him dashing up the hallway, if you like, the passageway behind the commentary box door. He'd hear this bang 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 of feet scurrying up because he knew he was late. And often you'd say, well, after a word from Vic Marks, it'll be Christopher Martin-Jenkins. You'd start to take headphones off and look behind you, and of course there was nobody there. So you'd carry on, do another over. That was part of his charm, you know. But there are so many crazy stories of Dear CMJ. Largely due to the fact because he was always trying to catch up time. Losing an entire set of golf clubs that he'd thrown onto the back of his Minimoke in Barbados, and he shot out of his golf club because he was late. He drove at breakneck speed through Bridgetown, parked his car in the hotel car park, and looked to find every single one of the golf clubs had gone. they were just strewn somewhere on the road between his club and the hotel. They weren't his clubs; they were ones he'd borrowed, of course. I mean, stories like that, trying to dial his office when using the TV remote controller from his hotel room rather than the mobile phone, and not being able to understand why I couldn't get through. There's stories that going to the wrong ground, telephoning the producer up and saying, "Is the game at Lord's today?" And the producer saying, "No, it's at the Oval." Oh, fish cakes! He never used to swear. Fish cakes! I'm at Lord's, and he also had been late for both games anyway because he was. But that was Christopher away from the mic. But then at the microphone, you had this incredibly, very disciplined, precise figure. Beautiful speech, very rounded vowels. He was a wonderful mimic. Loved the game. Was wonderful company. Great fun. Often at his own expense. And clearly someone, and again coming hot on the heels of Tony Gregg passing away 2 or 3 days ago as well. Two very different characters, of course. But my word, cricket has taken a hit these last 2 or 3 days.